On May 16, 2013, Nathalie Misawi, also known as the artist Cleo, opened the paper. And this is what she found. She posted the article on Facebook describing the anger she felt over living in Sweden when the justice system is so obviously failing. This particular case is the so-called bottle rape. 3 men had raped a 16-year-old girl. The article includes extract with the sentencing that read, "The girl pressed her legs together, and that could be interpreted as a sign of her being shy. And that the boys stopped penetrating her with the bottle, therefore they might not have had any malicious intent." And when I didn't think it could get any worse, I noticed the ad in the corner at the same page. An ad for a wine bottle with the text recommended written over it. This was only one of many recent rape cases where the offenders had been cleared of all charges. And I left a comment on Adli's post expressing my feeling of anger and helplessness. But I also wrote that we have to do something about it. We started chatting, and 4 days later, we met up. We were 4 women that met up that day. All of us with our own experiences of sexual violence. And only in our small group had the sexual violences taken so many different shapes and forms. We knew nothing about the justice system, though we did know one thing, that something was seriously wrong. That we could figure out based on our own experiences, our friends' experiences, and of those we could read about in the newspapers. We decided to start a campaign with clear-cut demands. And our arguments would be people's own stories and experiences. A few years earlier, a nationwide campaign named Talk About It, in Swedish, Prata om det, called for people to do just that. And also another campaign called Dare to Report, in Swedish, Våga anmäld, that urged people to report sexual violence to the police. However, at the same time, what difference will it make if people talk about it and report it to the police if no one will listen? We started to gather people's stories and experiences of sexual violence, and soon we received over 100 stories. And we decided to have 2 head demands. The first demand is that we need to change the norm behind the sexual violence. And the second one is that we need to change the legislation to a consent-based law. And in order for the campaign to reach as many people as possible, we gathered Sweden's best hip-hop, reggae, and soul artists to make a song and a music video based on all the stories that we gathered. Meanwhile, we also wrote a debate article together with well-known people from the cultural sector, professor of criminal law, politicians and staff from women's organizations. And both the song, the music video, and the debate article was released at the same day in September 2013. The 4 of us who started the campaign all had full-time jobs and believed this to be our contribution to the debate. And now, 2 years later, it's clear that our campaign was launched at the right moment, set the right tone, used the right expression, and not to mention, set the right demands. All this made it impossible for us to back down. Today, we're over 60,000 people who are calling out the same demands from all parts of Sweden. We have gone from being a campaign to a movement and now an own organization. We have managed to get all the political parties to address consent and sexual violence high up on the political agenda. We have inspired a party leader to have our logo permanently tattooed on his leg. And in not more than 3 days, we managed to gather over 5,000 people at Medborgarplatsen in Stockholm, the largest manifestation of sexual violence in Sweden to date. And our demands were clear: consent in practice and in law. And when the two biggest parties in Sweden, the Moderate Party and the Social Democrats, finally decided to support legislation based on consent, a commission was appointed to investigate the matter further. And the legislation of consent has gained the most of the media attention. You can see it's a lot of media attention. Because the matter of consent is easy to support. The majority of the people, it's given that legislation should signal that sex is about mutual respect and consent. And not as it is today, that it have to be about violence, threat of violence, or that you have to be in a particularly vulnerable situation. Because we know that that is not always the case when it comes to rape. We know that the perpetrator is often someone you know, someone who you are in a relationship with, and that the rape often happens indoors. We know that about 100 people are getting raped every day, and that 80 to 90% of all the rapes goes unreported. We know that many choose not to report the rape to the police because there is a big risk that the perpetrator will end up walking out of the courtroom free from all charges. We also know that 99% of the reported perpetrators are men, and that 95% of the victims are women. We know that 1 in 5 women in this room will at some point in their life be the victim of severe sexual violence, and that 1 in 20 men in here will be the same. Based on all these numbers, it's easy to condemn the sexual violence by screaming, "Fuck all rapists!" The civil society has got it, fattat, that we have a problem, a huge problem. They have got it. The legislation is failing. The politicians have got it, and they have commissioned a study, investigate a legislative change. Does this mean that we have reached our goal, that we are happy and satisfied? No, we are not satisfied. Legislation is of course of great importance, as they are regulating the society and creating and constituting norms. The introduction of the Act against corporal punishment against children in 1979 did, for example, bring significant change in the way we looked at violence as a part of raising our children. But now, what I'm now about to say is mainly directed towards the men in here. You women, you can go out for some air if you like to. You can take up your phone, even though Maria said you could not have it. Play a game or do something else you find fun and relaxing. Because the thing is, throughout history, women has taken responsibility for men's action, and far too much of it. Therefore, I will from now on direct my words towards the men in here. And do listen very carefully, and you can put away your phones and take away all other thoughts that are trying to distract you from listening now. About a year ago, me and my friends at Fatta looked around us and saw who were active within Fatta. We saw that all of us that started Fatta were women. All the persons that came to us and were activists were women. The people that came to our events, our lectures, our parties, were women. And almost everyone on our social media, the followers, were women. So what about the men? They were there, but in the sidelines, cheering us on and posted kind comments, telling us how good it was that we took the fight, and how much they hated men who raped. How does this add up? On a daily basis, we receive stories from women telling us about their experiences of sexual violence and abuse. At one point, I couldn't even take the subway or go to a party without someone coming to me and wanting to tell me their story about sexual violence. Everyone either knows someone who has been the victim of sexual violence or they have been the victims themselves. As far as I know, every rape, every offense, every assault require at least one perpetrator, right? And no one mentioned them. Not the media, not the victims, not the friends, not the justice system. No one. This is the picture that media often is feeding us with when it comes to sexual abuse and rape. The first one is in the morning television when it says, always carry pepper spray or an alarm in your handbag. The other one says, how to protect yourself from an assault. The third one, the director of Telling Silja says, women need to think how much they drink. They know what it might lead to. And also there's a lot of innovative products like nail polish that can relieve if your drink is drug and anti-rape wear so you can go out and not feel afraid of getting raped. We decided that it was time to flip the coin. We changed it. Always wear a whistle so you can call for help if you're about to commit an assault. How to protect yourself from committing an assault. Men need to think about how much they drink. They know what it might lead to. And we also did some innovative products, but we did cut locks and stuff like that, so men are not about to commit rape. When I was doing this talk, I was thinking, I wonder what this, like the pictures, if I Google rape, what will the pictures be? And it was exactly what I guessed. Do you think this is what signifies a rape, an assault? What would happen if we just move the camera lens a little from this girl over here? Who will be in focus? I am so sick of all these pictures that are about to show how sexual violence and rape look like. With aggressive men holding a woman in an outdoor environment and holding their hands over their mouths to keep them to shut up. Where and who is the perpetrator that no one dares to mention and not to show in the pictures? Where is the men's commitment and responsibility in the fight against sexual violence and abuse? The two most famous rapists in Sweden is a police commissioner who was famous for his lecture about gender equality. And the other one, a father of 2 young children, living a seemingly ordinary life in a small village here outside of Umeå. Not who we expected, huh? We can never know. Media and the police did not predict Hagamannen to be Niklas Lindberg. Rather, they painted a picture of a random loner running around in the woods. It might just as well be your neighbor, the dad, or the one who fights for gender equality. And in order to change the debate and the view of rapists, we initiated Fatta Man, Get It Man. A project to make the men understand, take responsibility, and truly participating in making a change. And about a month ago, I was here in Umeå to moderate a panel discussion between 4 men. And the project coordinator for Get It Man, Svante Tidholm, said something that really moved me. I'm going to read it for you now. we men were really eager to stand up and support Fatta. Of course, we said no to the sexual violence. However, now it's time for us to do something else. We need to say yes to change. We need to face that is much more difficult than saying no, a much longer and more complex process. We had it so easy on the feminist backs chanting our no, but now it's time for us to face other men and say yes. Yes to a different masculinity. To sum up, the first step is to get people to get it, att fatta, that we have a huge problem with the sexual violence. Today, the sexual violence is part of being human. We all need to understand that we are all a part of it. TED Talks is built on spreading ideas, and this is the idea that I want to pass on to you. I want you to consider the possibility that you can be both the victim and the perpetrator. That you can be both the problem and the solution. Do not take anything for granted. You might have crossed someone's line and someone might have crossed your line. Your child, neighbor, friends might have crossed someone's line or someone might have crossed theirs. The jokes during the coffee breaks might be a part of a rape culture. So might that hit song playing on the radio be as well? Start to criticize, start to question, start talking, start with yourself. Thank you.